Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Windy City Gridiron Radio at Windy City Gridiron of SB Nation. Your host, as always, Robert Ziklinski here, joined this week by Andrew Link, one of our nice rising writers, does a lot of good work for us at Windy City. Andrew, you're sitting in a coffee shop. You're making the ultimate sacrifice. I appreciate it, man.
It's good to be here, man. Yeah, I'm sitting here in a Starbucks in Ogilvie Station as we speak. So, just waiting to cruise on home.
We're getting a lot of good background music from there, little good elevator music. Yeah. So the season's finally here. The Bears open the season on Sunday against the Atlanta Falcons, and we are pleased to be joined to preview said game and overall the coming season with Jeanna Thomas. She is an SB Nation NFL writer. She is awesome. She's at Falcoholics Ping Pong reporter. And she's a member of the Pro Football Writers Association. And checking up on this, the AWSM, the Association for Women in Sports Media. So she is pretty reputable. She knows her shit, guys. And she'll give us everything you want to know about the Falcons for the Bears potentially pulling the upset. Maybe not. Jeanna, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. Kind of just want football to start, right? So.
I'm very ready. I'm also glad to know up front that this is a swearing podcast because those are my favorite kinds of podcasts. So.
Yeah, we don't hold back. If you want to vent to us about literally anything, even life, feel free and just go off. Just let it all. Just let all the profanities out. It's totally fine.
Excellent.
Yeah, us Bears fans are pretty easygoing.
Yeah. So first question, Jeanna. I know you're probably prepared for this. What's the concern about a Super Bowl hangover, especially after, that devastating loss? What's the mentality in the locker room in the sense that you've gotten since you're around the Falcons all the time? Are they embracing it? Are they maybe teetering on the brink if they're like face adversity from the outset? What's your sense there?
First of all, again, very glad this is a swearing podcast because that really might come into play talking about the Super Bowl. I will say, I think that Dan Quinn, having gone through the experience as Seattle's defensive coordinator of another crushing Super Bowl loss to the Patriots when he was out in Seattle, why would you not run the ball from the 1-yard line? That sort of thing. I think that experience helped him shape his approach to getting the guys' minds right going into the season. And so I think he's done a really good job of helping them reset. One thing that he does that he's very focused on is they always stick to the same routine and all they worry about is that particular day and the next game. And there's nothing else. And so he was able to, because he kept that focus all season and in his first season too, he was able to help them reset very quickly. One thing that I thought was very interesting is that the guys, I wouldn't say that they wallowed in it, but guys have told me that they've watched that game multiple times to get it out of their system. And I'm like, well, that makes one of us, and it wasn't me, because there's no way. I'm never watching that game again. But Matt Ryan watched it 3 times. The first time to see what he needed to correct, the second time just to really wallow in it, and a third time just to be like, this is the last time watching this, I'm done. And I was like, that's 3 times more than I had in me. But I think that the fact that they've been willing to immerse themselves in it to get it out of their systems is going to be helpful.
So you think that more or less, based off of what you just said, that they can use it kind of as motivation, that they see maybe a wide open NFC, because I still think they're the best team in the NFC, my opinion, that they can kind of just leverage off of that the failure feeds them. It's cliche. It's really cliche, but
I mean, it's basically like it's basically the Matt Ryan Gatorade commercial, defeat me, that sort of thing. But I mean, so it does sound cliched, but I think that it's accurate in this case. I do think that it has helped them sharpen their focus on this season.
All right, Andrew, you want to ask the second thing? We'll just ping pong this. So Andrew, go ahead. Do you have it pulled up?
Yeah, Jeanna. So all the pieces are still in place from last year's offense. But, obviously Kyle Shanahan was a huge part of that. And, just kind of wanted to get your take on how the Falcons are handling the loss of Shanahan with Steve Sarkisian coming along. And, what are your concerns with Matt Ryan and potential drop-off, for the offense as a whole?
I think that my biggest concern about Sark coming in was really his lack of play calling experience at this level, but we saw him do some good things in preseason. That said, Kyle Shanahan is masterful in terms of reading what opposing defenses are giving to him and adjusting on the fly. And so there's probably going to be some drop off. The other thing is, I don't think that Matt Ryan's performance last year is something that can be repeated. I mean, he was just too good. There's going to be a little bit of a setback just because it's not realistic to expect that he will play at that level again. But like you said, they did retain most of the key pieces. The only big change on offense is right guard. And so they've got a second-year guy, Wes Schweitzer, starting there. This is a guy who ran this outside zone in college, very familiar with it, has spent 2 years in the system. And so I think he's going to be ready to go. And he's sandwiched in between Ryan Schrader, who's one of the better right tackles in the league, and then also Alex Mack, who's arguably the best center in the league. And so he just has to be adequate. And so the fact that that's the only big change makes me think that they will still be prolific, just probably not quite as prolific as they were last season.
Yeah, they won't break any records necessarily. Okay.
Right.
So flipping over, the defense was super young last year, but there's another year in the system. There's a lot of young talent there. Vic Beasley, Desmond Trufant, guys that are rookies, second and third year, in significant roles in 2016. What are your thoughts about them taking the leap? And when I say leap, can they be a top 10 defense? Can they offset a potential drop-off from the offense, as you just mentioned?
I think that we're still looking at a defense that's probably going to be right outside of the top 10. I could see them ranking, 12th, 13th, right around there. But this is a young unit that I think is going to take a step forward. I've been really impressed by what I've seen from them in terms of just during the preseason. They were such a fun defense to watch. They're so fast, and they just make these big plays, and they're really a delight to watch. But it's been neat to see them get even faster because they've had more time in the system and they're much more comfortable now. Like guys like Deion Jones and Keanu Neal, the guys who were rookies starting last year, they played well, but they had some rookie lapses. I think that we'll see those not being a factor anymore. I mean, you still have a couple of rookies who are likely to be starting, Duke Riley, Tack McKinley, but I think that we won't see as many rookie lapses this year. And I think that, they're going to be an improved unit for sure.
So you might have just answered, but what still holds them back from being that really great defense? It's inexperience, right? Because there's still some young guys.
It is because they will have, let me think, as far as, true starters, they will have 8 guys out there, 8 of 11, who have 3 or fewer years of NFL experience. And so it really is just the youth. But they've done a really good job, I think, of bringing those guys along and helping them develop quickly. And especially the second-year guys have kind of blown me away. And, Beasley took a big step forward last year, so did Grady Jarrett. But now going into their third year, I expect to see more from them too. And so that's going to be fun to watch.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, so, next we wanted to kind of talk about some of the top matchups to watch out for in this game. So, I mean, from the Falcons' perspective, if you're the Bears, who's the most concerning player on each side of the ball that the Bears have to concern themselves with?
I mean, always Julio Jones on offense.
Yeah,
always. It's not even a question. And they have other weapons. That's why they were so successful last year. Taylor Gabriel can just kill you with speed. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman are playmakers. Austin Hooper, the tight end, has really developed. So there are a lot of guys, but nobody. I mean, I would say in the entire league, only it's Julio and Antonio Brown are 1A and 1B as far as the top receiver, with Odell Beckham Jr. Close third. And other than that, there just aren't many players in this league who can match up with Julio and have things go well. So definitely Julio on that side of the ball. I've got to say Jarrett on defense. He's a guy that I think is kind of under the radar. He was a later round draft pick. He fell in the draft because he's undersized for a defensive tackle. But he sacked Tom Brady 3 times in that crushing Super Bowl loss. And he played so well that he might have been named MVP if the Falcons had won. He was that good. And so I think that Jarrett's a guy to watch. He's really He's able to get a lot of push from inside. Because he is a little bit smaller, he's very fast. He's very athletic. So that's the guy that I'd keep an eye on over there. Also with Glennon starting the secondary, bless your hearts.
Yeah. Go on though. Go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just really anybody in the secondary.
Well, Desmond Trufant.
Okay.
I'd say that he's the main guy. I mean, he's their top corner. He's back. He's healthy. So he's certainly he's the guy that he's going to be the biggest problem for your receivers.
Okay. Yeah, Andrew, what are you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say you kind of stole my thunder there with looking for an under the radar player, but obviously Julio Jones on offense is not under the radar player, but who on offense might be somebody to keep an eye on, while the Bears are on defense.
Yeah, the people don't
tell
know
you.
about.
Yeah. Let's see, that people don't know about. I think Austin Hooper, I mentioned him just in passing. Second year tight end. He was probably one of the top 3 tight end prospects in the 2016 draft, and he certainly came along nicely last year. Ended up injured and missed a little bit of time, but he developed nicely, and he's really taken a step forward this offseason. He spent some time out. He lives out in California in the offseason. He spent some time out there with Matt Ryan. They were working on their timing and chemistry. Put in some extra time, just kind of getting the scheme right in his head and that sort of thing. So I think that he is certainly somebody to keep an eye on.
Okay. From the other side, how can the Bears attack the Falcons well? What's a point of weakness or emphasis that they can focus on to pull this massive upset? Maybe people aren't even thinking of.
I mean, part of the reason that the offense worked so well last season is because they had pretty good balance between the run game and the passing game. And Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman are dangerous, but if you can take those guys out of the mix, because they're a threat as receivers and backs, if you can take those guys out of the mix, if you can neutralize the run game at least, it makes life a lot more difficult for Matt Ryan. The other thing is the offensive line has been great. They were great last year. And again, it's mostly intact. I don't know that there's much weakness there, but if you can get the pass rush home, obviously, that's always a key.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, so I'm totally going to steal Robert's thunder a little bit here.
That's fine.
I don't feel bad about it because Vic Beasley was my guy when he was coming out. So, Jeanna, in 2 or 3 years from now, who do you see as the better player or pass rusher?
Try to take your bias out of it. I'm also biased.
Leonard Floyd or Vic Beasley? I
think they're pretty comparable.
I actually think that they are too. I'm trying to think. I think that they're pretty close. They were both guys that I really liked coming out of college. Both were guys that I would have been happy to have in Atlanta. I think that they're going to be pretty similar in terms of productivity.
That was a good answer.
I can't argue with you there. Yeah.
Leonard's my special boy, so love talking to him. That was a good answer. Okay, so finally, your reasonable expectations for the Falcons this season. So give me like a record, season result, whatever else, and then pick this game. So just justify both.
11-5, win the NFC South, sweep the Saints. That's very important.
That's very important.
And then, I think that they're going to win this week. I think they're going to beat the Bears.
Oh, that's really going out on a limb. That's really going out.
I just think that they didn't lose too much talent. They did. I loved what they did with the draft and with free agency, bringing in Dontari Poe. I think that they retained key players they really needed to retain to stay competitive. And I think looking around the NFC South, I just don't. I really think the Saints are a 7-9 team. On our podcast, I usually just say the Saints are trash, which is kind of my brand. But the Bucs, I'm not a big believer in the Bucs, mainly because Mike Smith and Dirk Cutter coached this Falcons team for too long, and I know what those guys are.
I think Jameis Smith is really overrated, so I'm on the same boat with you. So.
I think he is too. I mean, they gave him good weapons to work with this offseason, but I don't buy that hype. And then the Panthers, I think, have a ways to go to rebound from. Ugh, that was a Super Bowl hangover if I ever saw one. So I think that they're not going to be quite there yet.
Right, so the Falcons will still be able to take advantage. So I noticed you didn't want to say win the Super Bowl as reasonable expectations.
Yeah, no, I don't. No.
Okay.
That's too much. I mean, it's hard to get back there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Jeanna, thanks for coming on. Real great to finally talk to you. Just giving us your thoughts on the Falcons and along all those fronts. This was pretty great.
Thank you so much for having me on.
That is Jeanna Thomas of SB Nation NFL. She's also with the Falcoholic, SB Nation's Falcon site. She's their ping pong reporter, and she's a member of the Pro Football Writers Association and the Association for Women in Sports Media. You can follow her on Twitter at Jeanna Thomas. She has really great work across all of her platforms. I highly recommend it. Thanks again, Jeanna.
Thank you.
All right, Andrew, let's jump into the Bears now on a deeper level.
Let's do it.
So, I mean, this is the story of the season, or as much as people will want to make it. Well, we can have it on the week 1 level. We could have it on the initial early level. So Trubisky, Glennon is officially named the week 1 starter. He's going to play against the Atlanta Falcons. We just talked about it. Might not be a great matchup for him, but that's besides the case. I mean, at some point we kind of just have to accept it, right? That the Bears are sticking with this plan.
Yep.
But what are the flaws here? I mean, what's in their mindset? Because I know you're on the same wavelength with me where you put the best quarterback in to play the game. But let's try and justify their decision to do this. Let's take the contrarian take here. So why could they justify not putting in their young quarterback who's probably on level with Glennon?
Well, I understand what they're doing, and to a point, because let's face it, the first 4 games of the season are pretty tough. I mean, they're playing, good defenses, minus the Packers, but that's kind of a shootout game generally, or at least it's a close game. So, from my point of view, you have an offensive line that's kind of coming together. You have an offense in general that's kind of coming together, and I'd rather probably have the veteran out there to at least keep the team in games or to keep your rookie quarterback healthy. So that part of it I do understand. And I also get the part about Mark Sanchez being the number 2 on game day, because I think that the game plan for Trubisky and Glennon are going to be so wildly different that I'd rather have Mitch Trubisky have in a full week of practice with a game plan for that week, as opposed to coming off the bench cold, not running a game plan that was designed for him and his skill set, which is obviously considerably different than Mike Glennon's.
And I'll kind of piggyback off of that. They have and this is, again, just me doing my best to justify it, they have a very tough schedule to start. I mean, they play justifiably probably 4 teams that could be in the postseason in September, in the Falcons, the Buccaneers, the Steelers, and the Packers. There is the possible threat that you would stunt Trubisky if you threw him that immediately. Maybe, from my perspective, normally, then you made the right move, right? I can understand why they would be afraid of a guy with 13 college starts being immediately thrown into the fire, into that kind of immediate gauntlet. I don't know. For me, again, they're just being a little too cautious. I know you agree. We'll see how it plays out. I still think we see Trubisky by at least mid-season, and I think that's okay. There's a lot of history suggests that might not be. But we're at the point now where it's just time to accept it. We're at the point now where the future is delayed, but it's not delayed too much. Like, he's still in the wings. He's still chomping at the bit. The question is, if Glennon gets hurt, do they put in Sanchez before Trubisky?
I think in the game, if he gets hurt, like, let's say he gets hurt, in week 4, in the third quarter, I think Mark Sanchez, it goes into the game. Honestly, I don't think Mitch Trubisky is going to even dress on game day. That's my personal opinion. I don't have anything to base that off of, but But then I can see week 5, Mitch Trubisky getting the start, where Sanchez remains the number 2 quarterback and does not elevate to the starter. I kind of view Mark Sanchez's role on this team. He's the emergency guy. He's also the coach, on the field sort of thing. I just don't think that they want to throw him in the middle of a game. That's just my opinion on it.
Okay. Let's move on from that. Let's talk about strengths of the team. And these are pretty obvious for most that have been following along for the past few months. But so you name one and then kind of elaborate off of that, and then I will do the same. So lead off with anything you want. And whenever we just feel like stopping, I mean, there's a few, so we can go through this.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first and foremost, you have to start with the running back group. As a group of players, that's a really, really strong and really deep group. Obviously Jordan Howard had a wonderful year last year, 1,313 yards. Tariq Cohen looks like he's going to be a special sort of scat back, kind of in that Darren Sproles mold. Looks like, he's a veteran presence. He can return kicks. He can, block on third downs. He can catch passes. He can do a little bit of everything. And then that kid they signed from, picked up off of waivers from the Ravens, Mazzini, I think is his name, or something like that. Mazzelli.
What was it? Say it again.
Mazzelli?
Taquan Mazzell.
Mazzell. There you go. I want to throw an I at the end, like he's Italian or something. But I watched his college tape, and he's an interesting player too, because I think he's going to line up in the slot a lot. He runs really crisp routes and has great hands. It doesn't have a top end speed, but is really quick. So I think when you talk about an overall and diverse skill set, the running backs they're so deep. And even if Howard were to go down for a couple of games, I don't think he'd hurt too badly there.
Okay, agree. From the defensive side, I mean, it's obviously the front seven, particularly the defensive line. I mean, you have Akeem Hicks. You have who's one of the more underrated defensive ends in the league, especially considering people don't think that he's as athletic as he is. But he can kick on the outs. He can kick inside. He can go outside. He can work against tackles and guards. He's a Mack truck. He's built like a Mack truck with with underrated speed. I think he's probably one of the better. He's one of the better players in the league. People don't talk enough about. Then you have him buoyed with Eddie Goldman, who with a healthy season could be a really, really good player. I'm not sure if I'd rate him as many as Bears fans do, where he's a Pro Bowler, but a good starter. Jonathan Bullard, Roy Robertson-Harris, Mitch Unrein. I mean, that kind of 3-4 defensive line makes you salivate, really, and it's a matchup problem for any team. And then obviously, if Danny Trevathan's starting week 1 and Jarrell Freeman, and then in my opinion, again, he's my special boy, so it doesn't sound like bias, but I think he's going to be the Bears' best player this year, Leonard Floyd. He's going to be the key to their overall defensive success. If he is the guy that wreaks havoc on a consistent week-to-week basis that I think he's going to be, then they can win against anybody. If he's the guy that gets 15 sacks, 50 tackles, 3 or 4 forced fumbles, 30 tackles for loss, so like 20 tackles for loss, 30 quarterback pressures, that's a pretty good stat line of a special superstar player. If he's that guy that I believe he can be, I mean, that front seven, you can stack them up against anybody, even against the recently revamped Seahawks unit. It's a special group. I think they're going to need to, down the line, get him a complimentary young edge rusher next to him. But this year, they're still pretty set there. They're still pretty good.
I can't disagree with anything that you said there. I mean, I do think that they're going to be pretty special, and it looks like Pernell McPhee is going to be healthy-ish to start the season. So if they can, limit his snaps, that's an important piece too. I mean, because you do need a complementary piece to Leonard Floyd, and I always thought that Pernell McPhee was a good complement to him because he plays with more power than speed. So, it could be interesting.
One more strength. I think there's one more you can touch on.
Yeah, so for me, we didn't see it much in the preseason, but you and I are both at training camp, and we both know that this tight end group has the chance to be really good. I don't want to discount the offensive line because I do think that is a strength, but I think that the tight end group could be special. Deion Sims is a much better pass catcher and athlete than I think he's ever been given credit for. We all know that Zach Miller is a good player, but Adam Shaheen, he looked a little jittery in preseason, but I think he'll get over that as the season goes along. And then I'm a big Daniel Brown guy. Like, I think that he has the same kind of skill set that Zach Miller does, and it's just a matter of getting reps and getting opportunities, So I'm really excited about the tight end group, and I think they're going to use them a lot. I mean, they didn't throw much to the tight ends in the preseason, but I think once the lights go on, I think we're going to see a very tight end heavy offense.
Yeah, we had people saying that because they didn't throw to them much last year, the tight end group, that it would translate this year. Well, last year you had almost nothing in comparable depth or talent to what they have now. So why would they have not? The tight ends are arguably their best. With Cameron Meredith out, the tight ends are definitively, at least right now, the best pass catchers on the team, the best weapons on the team you have in the passing game. So why wouldn't you deploy them more? Why wouldn't you deploy those Swiss Army knives? I mean, I'm excited to see how they kind of employ in this play-action offense that I expect the Bears, this play-action zone run scheme offense that I expect the Bears to run. It's like similar to the early 2010 Texans. Like, this is there's a lot of versatility here, even if there's not like a lot of dynamic talent on the outside, and the tight ends are going to play a big part in that. Especially guys that can block, especially like guys like Miller and Sims who can both block and catch are invaluable.
Yeah, especially because I think that the passing game is going to be predicated on the play-action pass, because look, this is going to be a run-heavy team. So, how do you complement a run-heavy offense? Is you do it with play-action passing, and generally speaking, getting the tight ends involved in play-action is usually a staple. So that's how I kind of see this offense going. Once in a while, White get the ball deep to Marcus Wheaton, but I think you're moving the chains. Possession kind of receivers are going to be your tight ends this year.
Absolutely. So straight weaknesses. I think I can just jump right into this one. We kind of just touched on it right there. The receiving core. This was going to be a running team even with Cam Meredith in, but now especially, you don't really have any game-breaking talents there. I mean, you have a lot of number 2 or number 3 options. We don't know what Kevin White's going to be. You're sure you can have optimism there, but again, he's still unproven. Kendall Wright might be a solid slot receiver, but this group doesn't strike fear into any secondary. They might against mediocre to bad defenses. This won't be an issue, but against any elite team that the Bears will play, any elite defensive unit, you'll kind of see that come to fruition where they can stack the box more or they can man up against these guys, and there might be times where they're locked down, and it's going to be an offense that goes 3 yards in the cloud of dust. For now, that's not too much of a concern considering where the Bears are in the rebuilding phase. But for 2017, obviously, it looms very large.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The wide receivers are going to be a problem at some point this year, but we'll see how much. If the defense is really good and the running game is really good, maybe it doesn't matter as much this year, but definitely going over the top is going to be difficult this year.
As for another weakness, do we count Glennon as a weakness if we don't know him as a no commodity? Because he might be really bad, or he might just be average, right?
Yeah, I think we can count him as a weakness.
We'll count him as a weakness because here's the thing, and I know people will get angry at this. Oh, we haven't seen him play. Oh, no. I mean, we kind of have seen him play. I know it's the preseason. I know the Bears aren't showing all their entire bag of tricks, but we know he can't make every throw. We know he still made the occasional bad decision, and then and he did it in the preseason. So what's he going to do when the games are live or actually live? And we know he doesn't have the best pocket presence or mobility if the pressure comes around him. Trubisky would obviously have his own struggles, but he's the contrast of that. I think we would still probably count Trubisky as a weakness because of his inexperience. But aside from that, it would be a different story. Glennon is absolutely a guy that teams at this juncture don't have to fear. And much like the receivers might be an issue against elite units. I mean, we're just being honest, guys. If you're going to be angry about that, that's fine. I mean, I think that's I think that's the proper perspective. Cautious optimism. I don't expect him to throw 30 touchdowns, but I don't expect him to, and I don't expect him to be awful either. But right now, he's an absolute question mark, and he's an absolute weakness.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. The other,
I think one more
going on to another weakness is, I'd say the cornerback position. Now, a lot of people would maybe expand that to the secondary, but I honestly think that the safety position looks pretty decent right now. The cornerback position, I think, could use a little bit of help still, but Amukamara is a little beat up. Cooper's a little beat up, and Kyle Fuller has looked okay, but not like a world beater out there. So that's another spot that's a little concerning to me. But again, if the front seven plays like you think that they can, that mitigates a lot of that issue.
Without a doubt. Let's jump over to yet another grinding topic that I know people are annoyed by, me especially, given my rants last year, but we have to address it because he's still here. John Fox, this is obviously a big year for him. Arguably needs at least a 500 season, maybe even a playoff berth to retain his coaching status here with the Bears. I think you could consider him a lame duck. I mean, what are your thoughts on Fox going into this season? He's had some moments so far in the preseason that we'll have to touch on that kind of give you pause, like, oh, he hasn't changed whatsoever, and he's just playing out the strain, which is, I guess, fine. That we'll get to, but just give me your initial thoughts before we touch on that.
Well, my initial thoughts are that he probably has to take this team to the playoffs in order to save his job. I do believe that he is a lame duck coach at this point until proven otherwise. His contract says as much. He would have to get an extension in order to play out the last year of his deal. You just don't see NFL head coaches play out the last year of their deal without it. Just rarely ever happens. So he's going to need to take a 3-13 team to the playoffs, in my opinion, to warrant an extension, and I just don't see it happening.
Which is obviously a big jump considering quarterbacks and
a lot of moving parts. Yeah, exactly. That being said, he has not acted or coached like a coach who's on the hot seat right now, which is odd to me. And maybe he just doesn't care because he's one of the older coaches in the NFL, and maybe he's just so set in his ways that he just doesn't care. Who knows? Who knows what's going on in the mind of John Fox, because he doesn't really tell anybody. But so yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm a little confused, but from my perspective, I have to imagine that this is it for him.
Yeah, and you kind of just touched on it right there. He's operating as if he has all the power in the world, and he's still making these kinds of reckless decisions. Like you had last week, the Bears' final preseason game against the Browns. For whatever reason, Trubisky gets to start, which is fine. He needs the reps, but he's a quarterback, and you start the game with 9 straight handoffs. All right, he gets a few series, he gets out. You put in Connor Shaw gets injured, right? And then at the end of the game with the 3rd and 4th string offensive line in, which is objectively garbage, and let Trubisky get bullied around against the Cardinals with some questionable hits. You insert Trubisky and effectively throw him to the Wolves and are having him throw passes. You're risking the entire future on a 4th preseason game trying to score while down 25-0. Like if you're trying to, if you wanted to justify, oh, he's a competitor, but he's trying to help these guys that most of those guys aren't even on the roster anymore, be rewarded with their points, then, I mean, I don't understand. The future of the Bears is infinitely more important than any guys on the bottom of a 90-man camp roster. And for Trubisky's perspective, sure, of course, he's a quarterback. He's the competitor. He's not going to take himself out. But which is why you do it for him, right?
Exactly.
That's why you do it for him. I have no problem with Trubisky wanting to throw there, but you're the head coach. You're the guy in charge of everything. You're the one you're supposed to be like a dad. You're supposed to be like a parent that's looking out for the best interest of his kids. And then as usual in the post press conference, some kind of like barely muttered out phrase of, that's just what we thought was the best idea. I'm trying to do my best impression of Fox. It's just a lame justification, like this cocky justification, as if he has this Belichick, has earned all this Belichick-style benefit of the doubt here when he's absolutely done nothing. It's like it's almost as if it's just self-sabotage, or if he's trying to burn all his bridges on his way out because he knows he's leaving. It's unfathomable, and it just shows you he hasn't changed whatsoever. Like you said, he's stuck in his ways. I mean, what's the point? What's the point at this rate?
No, I completely agree. And yeah, that's an interesting point that, maybe he is just going out in a blaze of glory of John Foxness. I mean, who knows? Who knows what's, like I said, I don't know what's going on in his head because he talks like he's behind the steel curtain,
A lot of other Bears media members have a famous segment on their own podcast. What does the Fox say? Well, he doesn't say anything. He's a politician. So you'll never be able to you'll never be able to explain his things. And there's a reason why we have these kinds of conversations right now where we speculate about him, because dangerously speculate about him, because we don't have any information, because he doesn't offer anything. Because for whatever reason, I understand most NFL coaches don't say anything at press conferences, but a lot of NFL coaches also don't blow smoke up your ass the way he does, Like that.
I agree, and for the listeners out there who don't know, Robert and I are in a Bears chat with some other writers around town, and I think you brought that up the other day about how he would make a wonderful politician, because he doesn't say anything either way, and that's all he does is blow smoke up your ass all day long. So I think if he wants to get into politics, he'd fit right in.
Especially in Illinois, justifiably.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, he's perfect for that. Like,
yeah, it's perfect for Illinois.
Pernell McPhee's in the best shape he's been in after missing the entirety of training camp and preseason. Mike Glennon can make all the throws. Really, dude? The classic "What does the Fox say?" Classic "What does the Fox say?"
Yeah.
I'm up to here. No one can see what I'm doing, but I'm putting up the hand. I'm up to here in just dealing with that and trying to understand this man. Maybe understanding him is understanding that he's inconsistent and makes rash decisions out of nowhere and then doesn't explain. Maybe that's understanding John Fox at this rate. We'll see how this season unfolds, but I agree. He's probably gonna need a playoff berth. If he gets a playoff berth, hey, I guess you can stay, man. I mean, what are we going to do to tell you if you can somehow get this team into the playoffs? We'll see how it unfolds.
If that happens, though, I have two words for you, Dick Duran. Just don't.
Oh God, stop it! No, yeah, that'd be even the worst thing. So then the Bears would contract themselves to a bad coach because of a blip season.
Yep.
So if anything, you hope for young players' growth, while being able to jettison the guy that's not the guy that's going to lead you to the mountaintop. Because John Fox isn't. I'm sorry, everyone. John Fox is not the guy that's going to take Mitch Trubisky and a loaded Bear squad to play in the vaunted February game. He's not going to be the guy. We've discussed this at so many times. I know this is a very contentious topic among some people, among Bears fandoms. But he will not. He's not going to be that guy. He just isn't. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Accept it. In the words of Macho Man Randy Savage, accept it. It may not be how you like it. I think that's a rough paraphrase. But that's how it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's off of that passionate conversation. Guys we expect to break out. So give me one on offense and give me one on defense.
Do we have parameters here, like a rookie can't break out?
Okay, so a rookie can break out. But if you can be as creative as you want, you can pick another player. It has to be someone that hasn't had a huge role, or that had a huge role but was stagnant, didn't really do anything last year. If they're a second-year player, for example, if they're a rookie, then you can say the same thing. But yeah, so you know what? Don't use rookies. So do someone else. We'll do that parameter. Never mind. Don't use rookies.
All right. I think on offense, the very, very, very obvious answer is Kevin White.
You expect him to break out?
I do.
Okay.
I expect him to finally be healthy. I think that he changes his number. Cam Meredith ends up being the guy who goes down and not him. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of pointing in that direction now. So he's the default number one receiver. I just think that at some point, you started to see the light come on for him last year before he had the tibia fracture. So at this point, I want to say that the light finally does turn on for him. Now, I'm not expecting him to go out and have 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns, but I think something similar to what Cam Meredith did last year, where you're talking about 850, 880 yards, something like that, maybe 5-6 touchdowns. That's a breakout season for him because, let's face it, he's played 4 games in his NFL career. So I fully expect that. He's going to get the ball fed to him, and he has to make the most of it. So part of it's wishful thinking maybe, but I do think it's going to happen for him. I'm pulling for him hard.
Defensively?
Let's see. Defensively, I got to go with Jonathan Bullard. I think that he is going to be the perfect complement to Akeem Hicks, where Akeem Hicks is sneaky athletic, but he's big, strong, think kind of like the mountain from Game of Thrones. I mean, that's kind of the size he is. He's just a gigantic man. But, Jonathan Bullard put on some weight, but he's still, 290 pounds, 295, something like that. So he's relatively small for a 5 technique, but he's so quick. I mean, he's lightning quick. You saw it all preseason long. I mean, he beat double teams. He was splitting the gap. And he just had constant pressure up the middle. So I think that he's going to be the guy that breaks out this year with maybe 7-8 sacks, something like that.
Jonathan Bullard, 7 or 8 sacks?
Yeah.
Heard it first here on WCG Radio, everybody. That's a star quality 3-4 defensive end right there.
Yeah, and I think he's going to have double-digit tackles for loss. I think he's going to have a lot of pressure, consistent pressure. Big year for him. I think that defensive front's going to be huge, and I think he's going to be one of the big keys to it.
Okay. I like Jonathan Bullard too, but 7 or 8 sacks, that's the preseason Kool-Aid right there. I like it though. I'm not going to knock it too much. Guys, we expect to struggle. I'll do one here, and then you do one here. All right, so guys, we expect to struggle. He's kind of been anointed, more or less. I know that Kyle Fuller's been working in and out with him in the starting rotation, but I'm not a huge fan of Marcus Cooper. And based on that kind of competition the Bears have instilled, where Fuller's looked better next to a Mukamara, or depending how it is, I think Cooper's kind of in line to be abused a lot. I wasn't a huge fan of his signing. I understand the Bears have given him term. So he's going to be here for at least 2 seasons. But he's just another guy. And you've seen him be abused in his Cardinal shape. You've seen him kind of in camp. He didn't really impress me in camp. A lot of the plays that you and I would tweet out would be on him. I don't think you can. I think you can attest to that. And in the preseason, he seemed generally timid too. He's just an average corner. I mean, Prince Amukamara is too, to an extent, but that's because Prince Amukamara drops every pick that gets into his hands because he can't catch. Marcus Cooper doesn't even do that. And you're gonna see a constant shuffle there. That goes in line with the cornerbacks question, and to me, he's the biggest question mark at corner for especially on the boundary. So that's my guy I expect to struggle.
Okay. Yeah, mine might come as a shock to some people. This kind of goes back to what I saw a little bit in training camp, but mainly what I saw in preseason. and the second half of last year is Willie Young. I think that Willie might have kind of hit that point in his career where he just ain't got it anymore, you know? It's disappointing to me because I really like Willie Young as a player. I think, and he's a great guy too. I mean, he gives a lot to the community. He's been a great person as far as you couldn't ask for a better Chicago Bear, really.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is he just seems to be a step slow. He seems to not be able to kind of do the same moves and get off blocks like he did at the beginning of last year and then the previous few years before that. So at 31, I wonder if he's kind of lost that step permanently and he's going to struggle to get off blocks this season.
And I just wanted to kind of build off that. The real concern there is too, because he's going to start more than likely. I mean, unless Pernell McPhee really is in the best shape of his life, which I doubt, Willie Young might be in line to play 1,000 snaps next to Leonard Floyd. I mean, he's in line for a heavy workload, and that's not good for a guy that I agree looks like he's lost a step. It looks like he might not be the same player. He'd be better in a smaller role, and even then, I'd still find him as a concern. I absolutely agree. I mean, Willie Young, edge is a huge need. I'll leave it at that. Edge is a huge need. That is your number one need. You have your franchise quarterback. You cannot ignore that next April. We're having this conversation. That's just a small snippet of the conversation we're going to have in the winter and spring. Seriously. I mean, just look at Willie Young. Okay, so then, guys, you know who I'm going to pick, so try to think of somebody else. The best player on the team, the story of the 2017 season, because Mr. Trubisky's probably not going to get that much turn. It's going to be Leonard Floyd. That is who I urge all of you fine listeners to watch out for. His development, his rise, his status to a superstar that I expect to come this year, this 2017, will be the story of 2017, will be the story of this year. And I fully expect him to be recognized as the Bears' best player. I fully expect there's a lot of still like a sentiment outside of the Chicago bubble where people don't talk about him as much or don't know him. Everyone will know him by the time these next 4 months are up. Everyone will understand him, and he's going to be in the conversation among the game's great defensive greats. He is that special. He is that talented. I assure you. That versatile as well. I mean, I can't even think of a player, and I kind of talked about it on Twitter today. I can't think of a player with as freakish of a first step that has refined his pass rushing technique with violent hands and adding these counters, and can now also drop back into coverage with 3-4 outside linebacker responsibilities. There is no one else in the league with that kind of skill set that he does, that kind of versatile athletic skill set. Just watch for where he stands in the conversation by January. Just watch.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. That's the obvious choice. And one other thing to add to the Leonard Floyd discussion here is he's improved his defense against the run markedly this offseason.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Just an unbelievable amount. The added strength and size that he has from last year is very apparent on tape when you watch him setting the edge. So I think that he's going to be a star player. I mean, he's going to be a top 5 player in this league, whether that happens this year or next year.
Top 5 defensive player, top 5 pass rusher, right? Not top 5 overall player.
Yeah, defensive player in the league. So, and not even just pass rusher. I think he's already on the bubble of being one of those type of players. But as far as an overall defensive player, I think he's going to be there because you're going to see him get his hands on some passes and. He's gonna end up being a player who gets interceptions and has a lot of forced fumbles and making plays in space and things like that because of his length. So I just think eventually he's going to go down as one of those guys that you look at and go, man, I wish that guy was on my team, like a Von Miller or J.J. Watt.
We kind of had this discussion I think 2 weeks ago where we said who's another comparable young defensive Bear, and it's really not since Urlacher, since Harris. Like he's and what he offers, he's so unique in that same kind of mindset. Like this is a guy he's a jersey purchase if you're a fan. He's a guy that health provided will be special for years to come. I mean, this is not much for to me and to you, no doubt. This isn't really much up for debate. So aside from Leonard Floyd, who else, Andrew?
You know, and I'm picking this player not only because he's a really good player, but because his importance to the team this year cannot possibly be understated, and that's Jordan Howard. If Jordan Howard continues to do what he did last year and continues to build off of that, he has some of the most unbelievable traits that I've ever seen in a running back. He just doesn't quite have the speed to realize it, but as far as breakaway runs and things like that, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But what the guy has is some of the most unbelievable vision I've ever seen. And then he has such great feet for a back of his size. And then the power. I mean, the amount of power that he has. And don't anybody misunderstand what I'm saying here, because I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that Jordan Howard is even in the same conversation as Walter Payton. However, they have some similar traits. That being that first step, the power, the balance, the vision, things like that, where you see traits and you say, wow, those are elite traits. What he does not have is elite athleticism. But you can still be a 1,500-yard rusher with those traits. And that's what I think he's going to be. Maybe he takes a step back and only rushes for, 1,200 yards this year, something like that, because I think Tariq Cohen's going to take a number of carries away from him. But at the end of the day, I still think he's going to be a 5 yards per carry guy for at least the foreseeable future until his body starts betraying him a little bit.
And I think part of adding that kind of receiving aspect that a lot of people have talked up will help him. He's not going to be like Matt Forte. I mean, Matt Forte was an incredibly versatile running back that you could kind of see him split out as a receiver. But 30 to 35 receptions is very good for Jordan Howard. 30 to 35 receptions is the guy you can count on third down. What's going to be very important Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, this was something that was maybe a little overlooked in the offseason, but he had eye surgery between minicamp and training camp. And he basically said that he could see the lineman in front of him, but when he was trying to catch passes, he couldn't really see the ball all that well. And when you watch him catch, it's obvious that he's not a natural catcher of the football. And I wonder if part of that hasn't been in his life that he just didn't see the ball until it got on him a little bit too quick. And that's why he looks unnatural catching the football. And it makes me wonder if by the end of the season, he doesn't have a more natural appearance of catching the ball than he did in the past, because he just simply sees the ball better.
The key is what we're getting at here is that LASIK surgery is the key to being a fantastic NFL receiver. That's all you need to do, nothing else.
Exactly.
Get LASIK surgery. No,
yep.
I was just going to piggyback off that. For him, it's very important to be that natural receiver that you're mentioning, to be that guy that looks comfortable doing it. So even while he's going to be spelled often by Tariq Cohen, whoever else, as a weapon, that he's not an Adrian Peterson type where you take him out on third down because he can't catch or pass block. Because Jordan Howard can obviously pass block well, but you also want him to be a threat in the passing game to where it doesn't take away an element from your offense, because considering the lack of weapons on the outside, he has to do that, and so where teams can fear him actually running option routes or actually sitting down as a safety valve. And I'm really excited to see that. I think justifiably for me, I mean, Leonard Floyd and Jordan Howard are the two best players on the team, and I mean, both are poised to make consistent leaps now at that rate.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Big question. We haven't just specifically gone into the issue. We've touched on how it's developing at this rate. So how are the Bears going to offset the loss of Cameron Meredith? I want to preface this before you say anything, Andrew. That a trade right now for a receiver, unless it's a 4th or 5th round pick, a mid rounder, late rounder, whatever, doesn't really make much sense considering where the Bears are in the rebuild. I understand if you're not trying to win it now all the time, and that kind of goes along with the Trubisky argument where you're not putting your best quarterback on the field, that you're not really trying in the NFL, that you don't have the proper mindset. But the Bears have so many other pressing needs that it doesn't really make sense to go and give out 2 second-rounders or a second-rounder or even a first-rounder for a guy like Jarvis Landry, who a lot of people have thrown out to me on Twitter, when receivers are more or less window dressing. You want solid playmakers. You don't need a superstar on the outside. You just need guys you can rely on, and you need like 5 or 6 of those to be a championship offense, in my mind. When the Bears have so many other pressing needs, like we've just said, edge, aside from Leonard Floyd, you can't really rely on anybody consistently on the edge. Cornerback, huge question mark as well. Also a key in stopping offenses. Really going to give up a draft commodities right now because the 2017 season might look bleak and kind of throw away pieces of the future for when Trubisky likely steps in 2018. Think about that logic. There isn't much there. But anyway, from a scheme perspective, from a team perspective, Andrew, how are they going to offset the loss of Meredith? That's a huge thing. He's likely going to recover well. ACLs aren't the things they used to be. He didn't really have much damage otherwise aside from the ACL, so he could be ready by minicamp, by OTAs, whatever. How are they going to offset his loss?
Well, I think this answer is different depending on who's the quarterback. So we'll start with early on in the season when we know Mike Lennon's going to be the quarterback. And I touched on it earlier. I think they're gonna run the ball a lot, and then off of that they're gonna run a lot of play action. So the tight ends are gonna step up. I think Deion Sims, Zach Miller, at least early, those are going to be your primary targets with a heavy dose of Kendall Wright underneath. He looked really good on a lot of those crossing routes. So I think that's kind of the game plan. You're also probably going to see quite a bit of a screen game with the running backs. That's Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, and as the season goes on, I think you'll start to see them expand and get a little bit more downfield with their passing game. But at least early on, I just don't see them doing a whole lot of it. I think it's going to be a lot of matchups and trying to quote unquote rub receivers open, running option routes, things like that, where you're going to end up trying to scheme players open in order to get quick, easy completions. And that's just kind of how I see them running the offense with Glennon. Now, eventually, I do believe that Mitch Trubisky is going to be the starter, and I think that the offense is going to change considerably once that happens. So when that does happen, I think you'll see a more wide receiver heavy approach where he can get outside of the pocket and start running, scramble drill, where you have wide receivers kind of coming back to the ball. There's usually more guys open when you have a more mobile quarterback. So I think that you'll start to see the scheme evolve as Mitch Trubisky gets in there. You kind of saw that in the preseason a little bit, where they ran more high-low concepts than they did when Mike Lennon was in there. So I think that's kind of what we're going to see as the season progresses.
Okay. So it's just an evolution of the playbook, or necessary one at least.
Yeah, I think eventually, yeah.
Okay. Like I said, guys, and we should note this too. Cameron Meredith is a good player, and he was going to have a really statistical output season. And this isn't knocking him. This isn't me rationalizing or anything. But let's not mistake that he's Julio Jones or Antonio Brown. The Bears' offense can still function. It's just going to be that much more difficult. Okay, he's not that kind of player that's going to have coverages necessarily rolled to him, even if he was healthy to start the season. I'm not sure if you agree, Andrew.
No, I do agree. I mean, I think that Cam Meredith was on his way to becoming, and not one of those players like that you just mentioned, but I think he was on his way to becoming
like a second tier, third tier.
Yeah, a very good, wide receiver. Kind of more in that Alshon Jeffrey kind of tier. Maybe not making the over the top of guys kind of plays, But as far as a route runner, he was just open all the time.
Yeah.
So, and, getting back to, not trading for a receiver, that's the kind of guy that you're looking for in the draft. And look, Cameron Meredith was an undrafted free agent. You can find guys who can run routes. They're not that hard to find, in my opinion. If you have a good quarterback, that's where it all starts. And you can create weapons by having a good quarterback. So that's another reason why I don't think you go out and get it and make a trade, because you could use that same draft pick to draft a wide receiver, or you can use that pick to draft a corner or another pass rusher or a tackle, something like that, where you really need that player. And then in the 4th or 5th round, you pick up a wide receiver that, runs good routes, maybe is a 4 or 5 guy, just gets open, or at least open enough, and you let your shiny new quarterback get him the ball. So I'm not a fan of the trade idea either, and I don't think that missing Cam Meredith is going to, necessarily make the Bears go from being a 10-win team to an 8-win team. I don't think he's that valuable of a player. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he meant enough to this offense that, it's going to be that big of a deal. Replacing his production is going to be, a group effort, and I think that they'll replace it rather admirably.
To an extent, absolutely. All right. So kind of stats predictions. We got 5 or 6 players here. We can kind of justify based off of what's most relevant for the player. So I'll go first by whoever we have. So stats predictions first, and you can kind of lay out what you think after I go. Leonard Floyd. All right, so we'll have this statistic here. I think 14 sacks is not out of the question, so I'm going to say 14 sacks. I will say 50 tackles, or at least 50 tackles. Let's go with that. 4 forced fumbles, 30 quarterback pressures, which is typically what you see from the top guys like Khalil Mack, Von Miller. I think he's on that level. And close to 20 tackles for loss. Let's say like 16 or 17. That's typically a top number for the high-level impact defensive players. I want to say a pick. I'll say a pick or two. I'll say 2 picks. I say he gets 2 picks, and that's probably a justifiable stat line for what I expect in 2017 for Leonard Floyd.
We are on the same page there. Right before you said it, I was going to go with 14 sacks, so I'm gonna stick with 14 sacks. I think he's going to have. I think he's going to have a little bit less as far as tackles. I think he's going to have 50 tackles. I just don't think that they're either going to run right at him or run away from him. Tackles for loss, I'm going to put him at 22 tackles for loss. I think he's going to have a lot. But chase down from behind in the running game. As far as pressures, I'm going to go with 25. And then 3 forced fumbles and 1 pick.
Okay. Not up to my standards of my special
off.
Boy, but
yeah.
But okay.
We're on the same page, though.
Okay, same page. Jordan Howard. So I'll pull up his profile. We can kind of use that from 2016. All right. So Jordan Howard, 252 carries last year. That is not going to rise considering Tariq Cohen's presence now and possibly Benny Cunningham or Taquan Mazzell, whatever else. So I will say around 250 carries for him. Probably 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns and 34 receptions. 34 receptions, and he'll touchdowns counts in there. So he'll have 2 receiving touchdowns all on that mark. And he will average a little less than 5 yards a carry. I will disagree with your earlier sentiment. It'll be like 4.5.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go with I think his carries are going to go down slightly. I think he's going to be more in like that 225 range. And I got him, around 1,150, 1,200 yards. As far as touchdowns, I think his rushing touchdowns are going to be much higher, though. I think he's going to be at like 12.
12 touchdowns. Okay.
12 rushing touchdowns.
Damn. All right.
And I think he's going to catch less passes, though. I'm going to go with 25 catches and 1 touchdown.
Receiving. All right. Then let's move over to Mike Lennon, man of the hour. So let's pull up a standard.
This is tough.
This is going to be a tough one because we're not sure how this is going to be kind of a reflection of how long we think he plays.
Exactly.
So keep in mind with whatever you say. So we have yards. Ooh, I'll say 1,200. I'll say 1,100 yards. I'll say 10 touchdowns, 5 picks, and like an 80. He has a career 84.6 passer rating. I'll say a passer rating of 86. Accuracy wise, I mean 59.4% career. That's not really going to change either. 61% this year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there. I got him. I got him at 1,000 yards passing.
So what will Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I got him at 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I got him at 86 passer rating. And I also have him at 61% completion percentage.
So what would we say these stats translates to? 5 starts? 6 starts?
I'm going to say that's probably 5 starts.
Okay, I agree.
But I don't think he makes it through the 5th start.
I don't think he makes it to October. I agree. I think that gauntlet's kind of going to be a little rough towards the end on the offense, especially Thursday night in Green Bay, even if Green Bay doesn't have an elite unit. Okay. Next guy. Wait, who was it? It was Mr. Trubisky. All right, Mr. Trubisky, the future. What do we got on him? Go first.
I got him at 10,000 yards.
10,000 yards, very realistic.
150.1 or 151 passer rating. Yeah. I think he's going to play pretty significantly. So I think he gets to, I'm going to say 2,800 yards.
2,800. Okay, that's pretty good, especially considering how late he'll probably get into the game or into the season. All right, maybe late. All right, 2,800 yards, you said?
2,800 yards, yeah. So then I got him at, I'm going to go with 21 touchdowns.
20, okay. Oh, this is a really good rookie season. All right.
And I'm going to go with 18 interceptions.
All right, kind of dampened it a little bit.
I got to try to be a little bit.
Yeah. I know.
So I think that kind of balances out to somewhere around an 88, 89.
I think that would be the pass rating considering the amount of picks. Yeah.
But his completion percentage, I do think is going to be higher than Glennon's. I think I'm going to stick that around maybe 65, 66%. He's going to have some things to improve on. He's going to have. I'm really predicting he's going to have 3 or 4 stinker games, but the rest of them are going to be pretty good. I just think that's generally how it goes as a rookie. You have some good games, but you have some awful, awful games. I mean, let's keep in mind, I think Peyton Manning had, 28 or 29 interceptions his first year. So, I mean, that's just the way it goes for rookies. I mean, it is what it is. So,
yeah, to expect him to continually blaze a trail of fire everywhere he goes, that's just not realistic. Eventually he'll play atop the defense, and you'll kind of see a cataclysm. Or maybe he'll adjust, but that's not a realistic expectation.
It's certainly possible.
It's certainly possible. We're not ruling it out, but
yeah.
Okay, so I will go. I will go 2,000 yards, passing 2,100, something like that. I will go 14 touchdowns, and I will go 15 picks. So I think he's going to have a little bit of uneven year, as we just said, a little unexpected. I'm not sure if that translates to passing rating wise. I don't know. Is that in the 70s? Is that in the early 80s? Right. So see, I agree with you. He'll have like 65% completion.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what that translates to.
I would probably put that in like the 81 to 83 passer rating range, somewhere in there.
Yeah, because he's still accurate, right? Okay, so 81 passer rating. Yeah, just kind of repeating what you said. He'll make some plays every now and then, but there's going to be some issues from time to time, and people have to be patient. It doesn't mean he's a bust or anything. It means he's learning. He's on the fly. He's a guy that 13th-year college starts. If he even plays well, so you had a very good rookie season for him. If he even plays well to my standards of what statistical expectations, I think we should be ecstatic. I mean, that's going to be ridiculously good, especially with accuracy-wise. That's his best trait. That's the best trait you want from a quarterback, and he can still make every throw, unlike Lennon. So he'll be able to make more plays. Yeah. Next guy.
I just think that the coverages are going to get to him every now and again, and he's going to have 3 and 4 pick games.
Absolutely,
it's just going to happen. I think he gets the bulk of those picks in a handful of games, and the rest of them he's pretty solid. That's my prediction.
Yeah, the Bears will open up the playbook a bit for him, but they're also going to protect him too. You got to keep that in mind. You have to keep that in mind. They're not going to have him throw. They're not going to have him throw a 40 pass game at any point. He's not ready for that. He's not ready for that. So next guy, I will jettison one of them. We had someone else on the docket. I will just go, and I'm adding a different person. But Pernell McPhee, this should be a fun one. This will kind of go based off what we expect of his health, Andrew. I mean, he's activated out the pup, so I have to assume, and he's speaking this week, so you have to assume he's going to play in some kind of capacity against the Falcons. We just don't know how much, and we just don't know how limited he'll be, right? So what do you expect from Pernell McPhee? Use the Floyd model of stats that we had. And then with him, say the caveat, how many games do you expect him to appear in?
I honestly expect him to be reasonably healthy, and I think that's because they have an understanding that there's only so many plays left in his knees. That's it. There's a finite amount left. And they're probably going to have to be reasonably smart with how they deploy him. So when you're talking about situations where you need to unleash the pass rush, that's where he's going to be in there. He's not going to be in there, in my opinion, when it's first down in the first quarter against a running team. I think that's a waste. He just doesn't need that abuse. So I'm thinking, 12 games, 13 games, something like that. He's probably only going to play maybe 20 snaps a game, 25, somewhere in there. But I could see him being very efficient with that kind of pitch count. So in that vein, I could see him having 8 sacks, 25 tackles, maybe 10 tackles for a loss, and
wait, how many sacks did you give him? Sorry, I think
I give him 8.
Okay.
25 tackles, 10 TFLs, 1 forced fumble, and then I'll say maybe 20 hurries.
20 hurries is a lot for a part-time player. That's interesting.
Well, what did he have his first year with the Bears? I mean, he had a ton. I mean, he was with Von Miller at the end of the year. I mean, as far as his hurries were concerned. Well, at least the first half of the season, he was up there with him.
Right.
So Pernell McPhee's a guy that gets close a lot, but doesn't always finish. So I don't expect that to change. I mean, you saw him in camp. Well, we didn't see him.
We did not see him in camp. No.
When did we see him? At some point, we did see pictures of him, and he did definitely look thinner.
Oh, I did see. I saw him at the start when the Bears were rolling in. So I mean, I guess he looked in better shape, right? I mean,
he's definitely in better shape, and I don't necessarily think that's a lie from John Fox that he's in the best shape of his career. he might very well be, but the fact of the matter is like I said, his knees only have so many plays left in him. So if they can give him adequate rest and not overuse him, and he stays fresh, I think he could be a very efficient pass rusher in short little bursts. So that's what I'm looking for this year, and I'm a little bullish on him. So maybe it was wishful thinking on my part, but that's how I feel about it.
All right, I'll take the pessimistic take because I'm not that optimistic about him anyway. I think you see him in 8 or 9 games, realistically. 5 sacks, 12 pressures, 12 or 13 pressures, 10 tackles for loss. That's not a thing that's not necessarily going to go away. And like 25 tackles. I think he's a part-time player. I don't think he's going to be as utilized. I think the Bears are kind of just hoping that he can spell Leonard Floyd from time to time and Will Young from time to time. I think that's kind of going to be his role versus being a real impact guy. I think those years are behind him. I think this is his last year with the team, considering his contract. And then needing a young edge rusher. I don't know. I'm past the point of expecting anything tangible or positive from Pernell McPhee. Literally, even the stats I'm giving out that seem meager are gravy. Should be considered gravy to me. He's just not healthy, and he's never going to be full-time healthy, and it's a shame. He's a really good player when he can be on the field and be 100%. He really is. He's one of the better run defenders in the league. He's a dynamic pass rusher, especially when complemented by a superstar type like Leonard Floyd. But it just wasn't meant to be for him. It's a shame.
Well, here is part of what I'm thinking as well is I think Pernell McPhee knows that this is his swan song. I mean, I don't know that he has another year left in him, and I don't know that there's a team willing to take a chance on him after this season. And that's assuming that the Bears caught him, which I think we both are in agreement.
Yeah. At
the end of the season. So that being said, I think he's literally playing every play like it's his last play, and I think that he's the kind of guy that even if he's not 100%, he still has the heart of a lion when he's on the field, and that's one of the things that I think he's endeared himself to Bears fans for that reason. And I think he goes out in a blaze of glory, and he might end up going out on a cart at some point this season, but at least I think he's going to go.
But it'll be in a blaze. It'll be a glorious demise. It'll come after a sack of Aaron Rodgers or something.
Exactly. Well, let's hope.
Wow.
Let's hope they share that card. No,
wow.
I'm not advocating. I'm not advocating injuries for anybody, but I'm just saying.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And I think I kind of made a mistake when the pre-show to not mention this. Stat line for Mr. Kevin White. I think this will be a good one. I think I'm not sure. This will be a good discussion. I'm not sure how the Bears will deploy him. I think they'd be very well advised to try to shoehorn him into the number 1 role, see how he does under the pressure, see if he buckles or see if he thrives. Justifies that number 7 overall pick.
I don't think they have a choice.
They don't have a choice, right? So they kind of have to do it. We're going to see how it's going to go. So we'll go receptions, targets, yards per catch, and touchdowns. If you want to add in drops and add that. Well, no, let's not add in drops. So just how much he produces. What do you think, Andrew? Receptions, targets, yards per catch, and touchdowns.
Let's see. I'm thinking 65 catches.
Ooh, that seems like a steep number. Okay.
850 yards. That's 13 yards a pop. And I'm going to say he gets 7 touchdowns.
That is a really good season, considering where he's coming from. That is a really good season.
Well, I think that he's going to do that on over 100 targets, though.
Yeah, so he's not exactly a big play guy. It'll be a lot of short stuff.
Yeah, well, but I also think that they're gonna force the ball to him. He's not necessarily going to be open all the time. He's not necessarily going to catch the ball all the time. But early on last season, we saw them really try to push the ball in his direction. So I think that that's the game plan, at least early. I think it'll eventually pay off towards, the second half of the season. But maybe early on, it doesn't look as good as it's going to eventually look. And I think that again, early on, I think they're going to try to force feed the ball to him in the red zone and try to get his confidence up, try to get his numbers up so that he plays, more freely and loosely like he did in college during the second half of the season. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with those numbers.
Shout out to Zach Azani.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say 55 receptions. So doing the math right now. 55 receptions, 750 yards, 750-ish yards. So that is what? 13 yards a catch. It's kind of similar to yours. He'll have 120 targets, so he's kind of going to get the Meredith treatment. Which won't necessarily always be as effective. I agree with you there. And 5 touchdowns. So they're going to, like you said, they're going to force the ball a bit to him. They're going to work him in at the goal line. And at first it will be incredibly ineffective. But as he gets comfortable, you'll start to see some of those, like the plays he made against the Cowboys where he's jumping over the guy on the back of him, making a play, making a one-handed catch, a bobbling one-handed catch. You're going to start to see that more and more often as he gets confident. I'm still skeptical as to whether you'll ever see the guy that could have been if he was healthy, the receiver that he could have been. But by the end of the year, you're probably looking at a quality number 2 type. You're probably looking at a guy that you can actually rely on as a playmaker to an extent. I know some people don't believe this. I know it's a very passionate topic, especially at Windy City Gridiron. But it's true. And he's just had bad injury luck. That changes this year. That changes this year.
I agree.
All right, so kind of we'll wrap this up and get to our picks, whatever else. Andrew, this is our final Bears topic before we get to all of the picks. How far away, and you can answer this however you want, are the Bears from realistically contending, from being a Super Bowl championship contender, from being a team that's in the conversations, from not being a national laughingstock? And we know that's not justified. But how far away are they?
I'm going to say that next season they are going to be a playoff contender. Next season. This year, I think they're going to surprise some people. They're going to be that team that in the next offseason, people are going to go, you know what, that team's getting sneaky good over there, and they're getting ready to maybe compete for a wild card or maybe even unseat Green Bay if they have a down year or something like that. So I think that's 2018. With a full year of Mitch Trubisky and some more young talent on the roster via the draft, and they have a ton of money next year. So I think that you're going to see a little bit, more of the completion of the roster overhaul next season. That being said, I think that 2019 is the year that people are going to look at them and go, oh yeah, this is the team that is going to be everybody's favorite pick to.
They'll be that chic pick. They'll be that chic Super Bowl pick.
Yep. That's what I'm predicting. Because I think that, Trubisky will be in year 3. It'll be his second full year of starting. Most of this team will still be here, the younger players, but they'll be more experienced. They'll have, like I said, some big-name free agents that are going to be signed next offseason. I just think that the roster is going to be ready to go, and they're all going to have been in the same system now, for a couple of years and ready to go. So that's what I'm predicting, 2019.
I'll explain this in a different way, but I agree. 2019 is the timeline. That's when I think we should start seeing this team as a championship contender. Right now, the Bears have everything in place that you could want from me. I mean, maybe the tackles could improve, but aside from receivers, aside from cornerbacks, and aside from Trubisky being ready to step in, your star, your franchise quarterback, the Bears have every other championship piece in place. To me, the front seven's great, right? The offensive line is good enough to protect a franchise quarterback in big moments. You have your running back stable. You have 3 tight ends, and by 2019, who knows how good Adam Shaheen is, how that development track goes. It's just really those boundary positions in the quarterback. And that's going to change. That's what they're going to address. They're even going to address the edge rusher. They're going to address that over the next draft and offseason, whatever else. Those are positions you can add on as window dressing in free agency. Those are positions that they know that they have to work on, aside from everything else they've set in place. And once they do, and I really believe they do, that's when the consistency will start to reign in, and that's when you'll start to see the Bears in that national conversation. They'll beat that Cinderella team. They'll be that guy. All right, they're finally ready to make the leap, like you said. 2019, 2020, and once that goes, it's just kind of going to be we're just going to be rolling on the train and see eventually when or if it happens when they finally bring back a Lombardi here. That's when we'll be out of the. We won't really be talking about a rebuilding team anymore. We'll be talking about a consistently better contender and the kinds of problems a contender is going to have. For quite a while, ideally.
Well, all I can say is after 2025, they're going to rename the Lombardi Trophy to be the Hallis Trophy because,
Oh my God, that sounded literally like you threw me off. I thought like you played something on your phone like that. That literally sounded like a Grabowski or like a super fan. Listen, all I'm going to say is, who's going to beat the Bears this year? It was just the Packers? You kidding me? I can't even do it. Oh, man. That was pretty good, Andrew.
The Bears' defense is like a wall. You can't get through them.
You can't get through them. Who will win, a hurricane or Ditka? Just that whole routine. Let's get to the picks. We're going to save Atlanta and Chicago for last. So let's get to the picks. Let's go rapid fire here. All right, the season opener, Super Bowl champion Patriots at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you got?
I got the Patriots.
Okay. Quick justification, why?
Because they're the Patriots.
True.
Enough said. They're the defending champs, and they got better. I mean, a lot better.
They got a lot better. They had a great offseason. A lot of free agents, great free agency and draft.
Yeah, they're blowing it out this year.
Jets at Bills.
Oh, this is like a toilet bowl here. It's at Bills. I'm going to go with
at Bills.
Yeah, I'll go with the Bills.
It's Nathan Peterman versus Josh McCown.
Yeah. Wow, that's so bad. I'm going to go with the Bills just because they're at home. Josh McGowan is not going to have the same kind of magic when he's in New York.
It's no longer 2013 Mark Trestman offense, Josh McGowan.
Exactly.
It is not that clear anymore. Yeah, I mean, it seems like really both of these teams are trying to tank. They're both really bad, but like you said, let's just go home field. Maybe the Bills still technically have a better roster, so Bills over Jets. Eagles at Redskins.
Ooh, that's an interesting game. I'm going to go and say I'm going to take the Eagles. Okay. They have a nice, young team too that I feel like is getting better. I think Carson Wentz was a guy that I liked coming out of school, so I'm going to go ahead and say that the Eagles are going to win that game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Redskins kind of took some steps back, or going to take some steps back. They're in that unfortunate area where I think they're going to be stuck in purgatory for a while, considering how they're with Kirk Cousins and the rest of how the roster's built. So I'll go with the Eagles. I'm not a huge fan of Carson Wentz, but they just still have a really great defense. They have a really underrated defense.
Agreed, yeah.
Oakland at Tennessee. I think one of the matchups of the week here. This is a good one. Oakland at Tennessee.
I'm going to take Oakland, and I don't even think it's going to be close. I think Oakland's going to bury him. That defense is too good.
You think that
Derek Carr?
That was one of the worst defenses in the league last year. So you think they're going to be really good this year, huh?
Oakland's defense?
Yes. Oakland has one of the worst defenses.
I do think they're going to be good.
Okay.
I think they're going to be better.
Yeah.
That offense is good. And honestly, after watching the Titans play the Bears, I don't think that Titans team is half as good as people claim it is. I don't think that team's very good at all, to be honest. So I think that Oakland's going to come in there and and wipe the floor with them.
All right, we're kind of even so far. Actually, exactly even. So I like the Raiders. I agree with you, Derek Carr. I think he might be a little overrated, but I do appreciate his level of play. I think the defense have made a lot of good secondary additions. They're probably poised to dominate their division, so they'll wipe the floor a little bit with Tennessee. It'll be closer than what you predicted, but yeah. Another marquee matchup. We got Jameis Winston visiting Jay Cutler's Dolphins. What do you got? Jameis Winston in the Bucs, that is.
Yeah, this is week 1. Man, I think I'm gonna take the Bucs. Well, now that game got postponed, didn't it?
It did get postponed, but they'll play it on Monday, if anything, right? They'll play it on Monday
Well, they did say that they might play it later in the season too. So I guess it depends on when they play it.
Right. Hold on. Buccaneers, Dolphins. Let me check up on this because that is a good point.
There was a lot of stuff going around earlier today.
Because of Hurricane Irma, that is correct.
Yeah.
Let me see. So it will not be played on Monday. It will not be played on Sunday. They're going to play 16 straight weeks, so that effectively took out their bye week. That's crazy. So I don't know when they're going to
skip that one.
Yeah. Make the pick anyway. We kind of went in deep, but make the pick anyway.
Yeah, if it's later in the season, I'm going to go ahead and say that the Dolphins are going to win that game. But if it's week 1, Cutler's still kind of getting his feet wet with playing again, late start. I would take the Bucs. But if it's later in the season, I'm going to go ahead and say that Cutler and the Dolphins prevail in that game because I think they have a better team.
I think they have a better team too. I agree. Blake Bortles and the Jaguars against Tom Savage and the Houston Texans. Ooh, what a doozy! What a doozy! At Houston, and ironically, that game is being played in Houston. They are playing, yes.
Okay, it's not even a question for me. Houston's going to win that game. Blake Bortles is just not a good player, and I think that the Jaguars, despite the fact that they've spent a ton of money the last couple of years in free agency on their defense, they're just I don't think it's all going to come together for them. I think that they're doing it the Redskins way, and I don't think that's the right way. I just don't see them coming together as a cohesive unit, and that Texans defense is really good. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, look at it on paper. Blake Bortles and J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney on the other side. And Whitney Merciless.
Yeah.
Not exactly ideal for an awful quarterback, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league.
Exactly.
Easily. Arizona at Detroit.
I think Detroit upsets them at home.
Right.
I'm assuming that Arizona's favored in that game slightly.
I think so. I think the line I'm looking at it is like 3 or 4 points right now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna take the underdog at home in week 1. I think that Arizona. I think that they're more of a later season team, and I also think that Carson Palmer is just not quite what he once was. I think that I think that team is past their prime. I think that they're better on paper than they are in reality. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Lions.
I think the Lions are poised to regress. They were a lucky team last year. They had a lot of fourth quarter wins. They didn't really hold any leads until the fourth quarter in any of their 9 wins last year. And I actually disagree on the Cardinals. I think they're poised for a huge rebound. I think they'll be a playoff team this year. And I like them over the Lions big. They had the Cardinals, even while offensively they're still probably going to be they're going to improve enough because that defense was ranked 2nd in DVOA last year. Fun fact. That is a very good defense still. It'll be good enough for an Iowa 10-win playoff berth, and I think they're gonna run roughshod over the Lions there. So I'll disagree. That is our first differentiation. There you go. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Ooh, Ooh, Joe Flacco and Andy Dalton. All these fantastic quarterback matchups. I love the NFL, right?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because this is like kind of the same team playing itself right now. God, I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Right.
I like Andy Dalton better than Joe Flacco. I think that I think that the Bengals are just a hair better, and I think that wins out. It's going to be a close game though.
I'll agree. I think Joe Flacco is one of the. He doesn't get enough credit for being one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And I think the Ravens are incredibly flawed on offense. The Bengals are still probably reeling from the playoff loss to the Steelers 2 years ago, but there's still enough of that talent on that team to take advantage of Joe Flacco. And let's remember that also that AJ Green's healthy and he consistently abuses the Ravens. He's one of the league's best playmakers. I expect him to have a huge game there.
Yep.
Pittsburgh at Cleveland. This might be an easy one.
Yeah. I mean, Pittsburgh. I don't think there needs to be a whole lot of explanation for that game, but yeah. But you know what? When that game gets played later in the year, it's going to be a different story because I think that Browns team does have a lot of young talent, but it's so young, so inexperienced. Week 1, they don't stand a chance. So Pittsburgh wins going away.
Yeah, Deshaun Kaiser first start against number 1 rival. I'm not sure how good that'll go, and the Steelers are they're the AFC second best team in my mind. So that's a blowout waiting to happen. Colts at Rams. In a common theme, Scott Tolzien versus Jared Goff. Ooh, wow, right? Dude, what?
Yeah.
That makes it more difficult to pick too. I think yesterday Chuck Pagano said, and how I saw this. You know what you saw in the preseason. That wasn't the offense we're going to run with, Scott. We're going to open it up. Wow, I'm sure defensive coordinators are trembling in fear at an open playbook for Scott Tolzien.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, they didn't open it up at Wisconsin. They're not going to open it up
in
Indianapolis.
So,
where did you say that was played?
L.A. But remember that L.A. is like a transplant stadium still. So I don't know if you'd want to consider that home field advantage.
Well, I mean, it is going 3 time zones though. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the Rams are going to win that game.
Yeah. The Rams still have an elite defense talent-wise, and Scott Tolzien, again, I have more faith. I don't think Jared Goff is going to be good either, but I have more faith in him at least not losing the game than Scott Tolzien being abused by Aaron Donald and company. So
yeah, and Todd Gurley too. I mean, they have some running back there too. So
LA there, Seattle and Green Bay, and let's try to be unbiased here. I know this is a Bears podcast. I know we're Bears writers and by extension fans, but let's try to be unbiased here. But if you justifiably think the other way, that no matter what, it's going to happen, you know what I'm talking about. Make your pick. This should be probably the game of the week.
It's at Lambeau?
It is at Lambeau.
Wow. Man, this is tough.
Seahawks just made a trade for Sheldon Richardson, for everyone as a note. So one of the better
that's true. I forgot about
defensive line. I'm not sure how much that'll factor in, but
yeah, that defensive line is really good. You know what? That's the matchup right there. That's and that's where that game's going to get won and lost. And I think that Seattle ekes it out. Just absolutely ekes it out. It's going to be a hard-fought game, and that's going to be must-watch TV right there, Week 1. But I will take Seattle, and it's going to be a nail-biter.
I'm agonizing over this one.
I know, it's tough.
I think Seattle
roster.
is better everywhere on their roster, except for offensive line and quarterback. Except for offensive, and maybe even maybe Ty Montgomery better than C.J. Procise or whoever else is in Seattle's backfield. Russell Wilson's still a pretty good quarterback. He's still a star in my mind. I gotta go Seattle. I'll say in a close one too, Seattle. And that, I think as a note, we're not going to shy away from picking the Packers on this podcast. We're not that biased, guys. We just both think the Seahawks will win. I think we can agree. Carolina at San Francisco.
Carolina. I know. Again, that's another similar game to Pittsburgh and Cleveland. I just don't think that there's
not a lot of talent
even
in place.
Yeah, they're not in the same.
They're not
they're
not
in
the
same
Harbaugh
league.
49ers here, man. They're not the
Yeah.
Harbaugh 49ers. The Sunday night matchup. Giants at Cowboys.
Giants at Cowboys, and Ezekiel Elliott is suspended, right?
Yes, he is not playing.
Okay. You know what? I'm still taking Cowboys. Even with this suspension. You know what? I don't like that Giants team. I never have. I always think that they're overrated. And of course, they win 2 Super Bowls when I think they're overrated. But that Cowboys team, I don't think it matters who you stick in that running back. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's a really good player, and I'm not taking anything away from him. But that offensive line is so good, and Dak Prescott is good enough that you can overcome the loss of a really great running back and have a league average running back still run for 130 yards against the Giants front, which I don't think is that great. I think that their secondary now is really their strength and not the front 7. So, yeah, that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Dallas.
Yeah, I agree with it. I don't think the Giants are necessarily that good. I think both of the Super Bowls that the Giants won were buoyed. Eli Manning got a lot of credit, and really the rest of the team was kind of good. But I think there's a similar construction here. The offensive line might not be fantastic, but the defense is still elite. I like that receiving. I like that the weapons Eli has. I like the running backs, Paul Perkins. And I think they're gonna win the NFC East this year going away. I think that the Cowboys are gonna regress, and Giants will pull the upset over their rivals here, relative upset at least. That Ezekiel Elliott loss is kind of going to be tough to manage. I mean, he's a big part of their offense. I don't think people understand it enough. It's not just the offensive line. 2 Monday Nighters, and then we'll get to Falcons-Bears. So 2 more Monday Nighters and the Falcons-Bears. Saints at Vikings.
Saints at Vikings. Is the new stadium open
For the Vikings? Yeah, they opened last year.
They did, right? Is it outdoor?
It is a dome where they can – with a retractable roof, I believe. I'm not sure
but it's still September.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Saints. I think this is a battle of good offense versus good defense, bad defense versus bad offense. So I
Wait,
think
who's who?
The Saints have a good offense and a bad defense. Vikings have a bad offense and a good defense.
Okay.
But I think that the good eventually win out over the good defense.
Yeah, I think the Vikings are going to abuse Drew Brees. I think he's kind of on the downturn a little bit, and I will differ from that. I think the Vikings are a better team, overall team, besides offensive line and quarterback. Yeah. So I will go Vikings.
Makes a difference in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, Drew Brees I think to me he's going to start to show his age a lot more this year, so. Finally, before Falcons-Bears, Chargers at Broncos.
Chargers at Broncos. Well, I think it's pretty easy, too. I'm going to take the Broncos.
What?
The Chargers are a very good team.
Okay. Broncos.
Yeah, I don't think they're a very good team. I think that the Broncos' defense is still very, very, very good. And I don't think Trevor Siemian is as bad as he gets credit for. I think he's a good enough game manager to win games with that defense. I think Kyle Orton in 2005,
the 2005 Bears reference. All right. I think the Chargers are a sleeper team. I think they're a playoff team this year. I know that they get that same kind of rap every year, and then they go out in a blaze of disappointing glory and shame every year. Somehow lose like 5 fourth-quarter leads. I mean, it's uncanny how that team loses games, finds a way to lose games. I've never seen it before, especially with Phillip Rivers. But I think this year they're going to kind of pull it together. I think the Broncos are actually one of the worst teams in the league. I agree with you that Trevor Siemian isn't as bad as the reputation he has, but that offense doesn't strike any fear into me, and that defense, certainly not the 2015 unit that can put Peyton Manning on its back, because at least Peyton Manning could manage the game, even if he was justifiably awful most of that year. So I think the Chargers will actually win in a blowout. All right, finally, our picks here. Falcons at Bears. We had Jeanna make her pick. She picked the Falcons. She didn't give a score. We'll do a score. Just kind of give a quick summation of why. Falcons at Bears, week 1. Bears opened the season at home against Soldier Field against the defending NFC champion.
Oh, man. For the website, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. The Falcons are going to win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be 23 Falcons.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of banking what I've seen here, banking on the Super Bowl hangover really affecting the Falcons that much. But it's not going to happen in week 1. They're not going to feel the effects of that yet. The Bears, I really like their defense. I really like the front seven, and it's going to be enough to keep. I think this game will be competitive for at least 2.5 quarters. But being on the field for so long, that's going to overwhelm them eventually. It's going to, and the superior out because the Falcons have both. Will be a little closer than most people expect, but 27-19. Won't be a huge blowout. It'll be competitive. That's what this defense is going to do the whole year. I wouldn't be shocked if there was an upset or blowout, but a lot has to happen. Literally a lot has to happen for that, a lot of the calculation. So Falcons 27-19. Bears get off to a 0-1 start against the defending NFC champions. That should just about wrap up this edition of Windy City Gridiron Radio. We touched on a lot, guys. We had a big guest. Jeanna Thomas is one of the bigger SB Nation writers, Pro Football Writers Association. I had a lot of fun having her on. Make sure you follow her at Jeanna Thomas. Follow Andrew at BearsLink82. Follow me on Twitter at Robert Siglinski. Follow our website as a whole at WC Gridiron. Follow all of our work there. I also do work at the Rock River Times, so keep an eye on features for there. I'll have that all season. I mean, we're excited. Football is back. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. This is the greatest game. I mean, that's my opinion. I know Andrew agrees. This is the greatest game to watch, especially when it's played at a high level, high and balanced level, and it's finally back at its best level of the world's best. Can't be excited enough. Again, stay classy, everybody. Have a good night. We'll talk to you after Sunday.